Hey guys, welcome to another video. Now today I'll be doing a quick update on my current splitting steel armor stacker. Now just a disclaimer, this build is more of a mid-budget build as it uses some pretty expensive pieces. But with that said, let's get into it. Now you might be wondering, why splitting steel? Well, the number one reason is because I hate gem swapping, right? So now normally armor stackers will use either smite or lightning strike of arcing for clear, or and maybe Molten Strike for single target DPS. But with Splitting Steel, you can pretty much have a decent clear and single target damage. Now this is very important when it comes to tier 17s, as some rares do get pretty tanky, like really tanky. Now because I'm running back to basics with Nemesis Scarabs, so some of the rares get like life regen, lightning resistant, soul eater, and also on tier 17 there are map mods like monster has 100% more life, which is around 250 to 300% depending on what my back to basic rolls. Life has extra ES and 100% elemental resistance, which I believe is capped at 75%. Basically the rare monsters get really crazy with all these wacky mods. So yeah, it is pretty crucial to have a good single target damage when it comes to tier 17s. Now onto the build. Like I've explained in my previous videos, I'm currently utilizing the new gloves, Hand of Freesia. So this allows me to run Generosity on all my aura gems. So as you can see, I'm currently running 3 Awakened Generosities in this build, and each of them gives me somewhere around 44 to 48%, depending on where I socket them, and +1 to +2 gem levels. So this is somewhat equivalent to running around 4 introspections. But of course, this comes at a downside, right? Like, we do have a very tight gem sockets, or rather very little gem sockets to play with, and because of that I'm running a corrupted haste implicit on my boots to alleviate the socket pressure. So survivability wise, I'm running Transcendent, which makes the character super tanky. But of course, to run Transcendence, you will need as much feast damage taken converted to either Elemental or Chaos as possible. This is why I'm running Lightning Coil, so this gives me 50% of feast damage taken as Lightning, Taste of Hit for another 15%, ES and Armor Mastery for an additional 10%, and finally my Watcher's Eye, which gives me 20%. Now do note that you do not need the exact rolls on my Watcher's Eye, and you really need the phase damage taken as part. And I do think it is better to get a double Purity of Elements implicit with phase taken as. Those can roll up to 12% each. So that adds up to around 24%. So all in all this will give you around 95 to 99% of damage converted to elemental or chaos. So like I said, try to get to as near to 100% as possible, as it makes a huge difference. Alright, I cannot stress this enough. So as you later see in the boss fight, right, my taste of hate actually went down for like a second or two, and I actually got pretty close to dying. But then again, with that said, the map does have increased monster damage and frenzy, so all in all, not too bad even without taste of hate. Now with all that said, let's get into the gears. Alright, so let's start with the first piece of gear, the Replica Dream Feather. So Replica Dream Feather, the most important stat here is obviously the implicit, which has Resolute Technique. So Resolute Technique makes it so that we do not need any accuracy on our gear, and we can drop precision and run a Vitality Aura. Very important. For the helmet, we have the Formless Flame with a Reservation, Cost and Multiplier implicit. So because we're so starved on sockets, we can't really use Enlightened. With this implicit, this is basically like free Enlightened for us. So we will be socketing like a bunch of 50% auras in here. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Offhand, another Replica Dream Feather. Now this, you don't really need anything on this. For me, I choose to have a higher attack speed, but you can go for whatever you want. Not too important, just get a cheapest Replica Dream Feather. Now, you can't play Splitting Steel without Nimis, right? Splitting Steel, Nimis, Splitting Steel, it just goes together. Okay, it just goes together. So Nimi is self-explanatory. It gives a lot of damage. The returning proc just makes everything better. You can shotgun and whatnot. Right, very very important. Lightning coil. Now, like I said previously, this is for the fist to lightning conversion. You could get a +1 max res on this, but I'm too much of a cheapskate to even bother, so I just went with a clean, non-corrupted lightning coil. Now the ring. This specific ring is very important because you need the mana cost reduction. So ideally you want to get 14%, so 6% on the implicit and 8% on the prefix. You can also craft this, but you do need like a veil orb or 2 or 3 or 4, like depending on your luck. So I bought this for like 15 divines. I know this goes for somewhere between like 80 to 100 divines now. It's pretty pricey. So just get what you can. Yep. Amulet, I have been using this since like week 2 of the league. You want to get haste has no reservation and nothing else. Because like our haste has inspiration on it, and inspiration does have a cost multiplier of 120%, and it applies to the haste. So your haste doesn't cost 50% reservation, it costs slightly higher. And that is why you want to have haste has no reservation. Gloves, get a +2 AoE or a +2 aura, doesn't matter, but +2 AoE is way cheaper than a +2 aura, so I recommend a +2 AoE for the gloves as a corrupted implicit. Yeah, that's pretty much all you need on the gloves, nothing much. Mage Blood, well, Mage Blood, nothing much to say here. March of the Legions, you want to get either a +2 aura or a +2 AoE. Now, you have to make sure it's a +5 Socketed Aura Gems as a base, and because this will give our generosity another +5 levels. So, in case you didn't know, Awakened Generosity actually gives a +2 to the level of gems instead of +1 at level 10. So, because of this, my grace is actually level 30. So, it's a level 21 grace as a base, +2 from my Awakened Generosity, and +7 from the boots. So, level 30. Pretty good, pretty nice. So, let's go through the gems since we're already here. We are using Inspiration to cut down the cost on the Divine Blessing. Now, this is very important, especially when you swap over a Nimis and you drop the other ring. So you're only having your reduced mana cost on one ring. Because of that, you have to run a level 21 Inspiration. So this gives 1% more reduction. So it goes from a 39% reduced to a 40% reduced from level 20 to 21. So it's 1%, every percent counts, very important. Now you see why am I not linking my Smite to my Awakened Generosity. Smite is aura, and it is supported as well. But the thing is, for some reason, Smite just does not work with Awakened Generosity, okay? So if you were to link it and you were to smite an enemy, you will not get the buff. You will not. So do not link it. Just leave it here. So going back to the gloves, we have Vitality, Purity of Fire. Now the Purity of Fire has to be level 23. No more. You can go for more, but no less, right? Go for more is better, but no less. So if you're using a +2 AoE on the implicit, you can just leave it as level 20 because you get +2 from the implicit and then +1 from Awakened Generosity. So they'll put it level 23. So that saves a bit of money, so a bit of cost. And we also want to get our Wrath here because the higher level Wrath gives a lot of flat damage, and you really need all the flat damage you can get on this build. And that's why I chose to socket my Wrath here instead of over on my helmet. Vitality, hell lot of regen, gets boosted by the Guardian's Ascendancy, which gives him more ES recovery. Very, very important. Back to the weapon, we have Mark on Hit, Sniper's Mark, Lip Slam, basic stuff, nothing to explain here. Helmet, we have Purity of Elements, so this makes us ailment immune, and plus all ally res basically gives us 40% increased armor and 40 ES regen. Very nice. Discipline, this is our main source of ES. So without discipline, we have probably like 300? Yeah, like a 300 ES pool. So discipline is very, very important. Get it to level 21, or rather get a level 21 discipline. Determination, because we're an armor stacker and we are double dipping our determination and grace with iron reflexes. And awaken generosity, so 44% increased defense of all the auras here, and +1 to all their levels. Now, Defiance Banner, Molten Shell, Ancestral Protector. Now, do note, Defiance Banner does not work with Generosity as well. Defiance Banner and Smite, these two skills do not work with Generosity, and that's why I separated them. For the main links, we have Inspiration, Splitting Steel, Awaken Lightning Pen, damage on full life, ally damage, and volatility. So these are pretty straightforward, nothing much to explain here. Just get a bunch of damage here. Yeah. Now for the flask, we are running a Basalt, Stibnite, Silver, and Ruby. Now the suffixes are pretty self-explanatory. You want to get like ally res, attack speed, evasion, armor, and finally a taste of hate with at least 15% fees taken as co. It has to be 15%, alright? So yeah, moving on to the skill tree. Now the skill tree is pretty similar to what I did previously. Very, very similar. So as a Scion, we have to have Militant Faith here with reduced mana cost. So this entire circle here with Unnatural Instinct gives us like 170 devotion. So every 10 devotion gives us 1% reduced mana cost. So with 170 devotion, that is 17%. Like I said, every percentage of reduced mana cost counts in this build. Alright, so yeah, Militant Faith here with Maxarius, sorry. So Maxarius gives us Transcendence. Now, in case you didn't know, like some of you might not know or are unaware, you can actually have 1% reduced mana cost and increase non-curse aura effect, but with a different faith, and you can just divine them. So I believe when you divine it, it will change like faithful to whoever, right? So yeah, so that's one something very neat to know. Unnatural Instinct here to get a bunch of devotion and a bunch of stats, mainly for the devotion. Mana cost here, mana cost reduction. Every mana cost reduction counts. And yeah, for me, I'm running Forbidden Flame and Flash Dead Eye. So Dead Eye gives us mark effect and projectiles. So more projectiles, more damage, more mark effect, more damage. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Zealot's Oath, because well, we're running CI, so we need the ES regen. Fire Mastery for every uncapped fire res. So if you take a look at our uncapped fire res, we have somewhere around 480. So that's 480 flat ES recovery, which also gets amplified by Guardian's Ascendancy. 3% increased recovery rate of life, mana, energy shield. Very nice. Get a bunch of aura effects here. Get the armor ES recovery, like I said earlier. And for this node, I'm running Impossible Escape. Now, Impossible Escape for Imbalanced Guard actually gives us 3% to max or max rest. Or ally max rest, sorry. And ally max rest is quite hard to come by, especially when we're running Transcendence. So yeah, every point counts. Iron Reflexes, well, Armor Stacker. Melding of the Flesh. This is very important because due to the new changes of the flask, melding actually has way more value than before. So before, people run like triple ally flask to mitigate 3 of the different damage types like fire, cold, and lightning. But with melding and a single ally flask, we are actually sort of mitigating 3 elemental damage types due to the fact that our maximum elemental resistance is capped by our highest ally max rest, which will be fire, our max fire rest, because we're running Purity of Fire and Ruby Flask. So it's pretty important. It's very important. You have to have this, alright? And it has to be minus 12%. Nothing more than that, nothing less. precise technique. Now this is a free 40% more damage because we're running Chaos Inoculation. And yeah, I mean, we can't invest in crits anywhere because we are so stuffed on skill points. Fortress Eye, I explained previously, Feast Taken S, and whatever last mod you want. For me, I went with increased energy shield recovery rate because I found this for cheap. But you can always drop that note and just go for the two important lines, which are the Feast Taken S. And yeah, if you take a look at my ES pool, the ES pool is rather low. And because of that, you will be very susceptible to degens. And degens, you know, Shade, just need a bit of reaction time, a bunch of recovery, and Shade, and all the regens pretty much are non-existent. I mean, they are still there, but it's easier to handle all the degens. So I do like this notable not a lot, but you can definitely take this 3 point out and put it somewhere else. Yeah, but I do like to keep them if possible. Clusters, I'm running 5 passive voices because 3 passives are just way too expensive for me. And just a bunch of 35% increased effect on my introspection clusters. And same thing here, voices, introspection, but these are 25%, is still 35%. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the skill tree. And pretty much it for this video. Now I know I've rambled for quite a bit, but I do want to do a rather detailed guide so people know what they are doing. Oh, and also important thing for tier 17s. Now, tier 17s, there are a lot of mods that you can and cannot do, right? All the curses and whatnot, you can ignore them. But things like less recovery, less defenses, less effect of non-curse aura, and less maximum resistance, all this kind of nonsense, do stay away from them as far as possible because you will never be able to run them, right? They just break the build entirely. But most importantly, in tier 17s are the monsters in the map. Now, you do need to take note of all the monsters in the map. There are a few that I want to talk about, but I guess the video has been going on for quite a bit already, so I don't want to take too much of your time. Basically, take out Wretched Defiler. That thing does detonate it, and it kills you no matter how much ES, how much mitigation you have. Alright, so take that shit out. Don't put that in. Just replace it with some random off flame. Like, you look at all this off flame that I have. I pick down from the floor and replace them when I see some fucked mobs in there. Yeah, other than that, do stay away from degens if possible because you are really weak to degens. Unless you're Shade and you're very confident. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And as always, if you have any questions, you want to check out how the build works and stuff, do leave a comment down below, or you can check out my stream. I do stream from time to time on Twitch, so do tune in, and see how it goes. If you like this kind of content, do leave a like, leave a sub. I really appreciate all the likes and sub that you can give me. And yeah, to GGG, please do not ban me for this tag once again. I do not know if this is intended, but please do not ban me for this. And for you guys, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.